Welcome to How is God Calling You? A production of CTNY, the Catholic television network of Youngstown. It is a show that seeks to stimulate and assist youth and young adults to discover the path that God has chosen for them. Vocations to the priesthood, religious life, marriage, and single life will all be discussed. Your program host is Father James Corda.
Welcome to our show, How is God Calling You? I'm Father Jim Corda. Today we're going to talk with the Antonine sisters. And joining me in today's show is Sister Celine and Sister Marie Madeline. It's nice to have you both on the show today.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
Before we get into our discussion in particular about the two of you and your vocation and so forth, let's talk about St. Marin and the Maronite Rite so we can give a nice flavor to our friends that are with us. Tell us a little bit about St. Marin, who he was, what his life was like, and some interesting part of who he is.
We refer to our church as the Antiochian Syriac Maronite Church, and I will explain a little bit about each of these characteristics, but we call it the Antiochian Church in reference to Antioch, where Peter, we believe, the tradition tells us that Peter established the church in Antioch, and he visited there several times, and he became its first bishop before he moved on to Rome, where he was martyred. And this is where the disciples of Jesus were called Christians for the first time, according to the book of the Acts of the Apostles. So that's as far as Antiochian. And then it's the Syriac Church, because Syriac is the liturgical language of the Maronite Church. And to help people understand this better, we tell them that just like Latin is for the Roman Catholic Church, that what Syriac is for us, except that we still use the Syriac language in our liturgy. And then the Maronite Church, obviously, after St. Marin, who was a monk and a hermit, he actually lived on a mountain in Syria in the open air, and he was exposed to nature forces. And because of his holiness, people kind of flocked to him and wanted to know more about him and imitate his way of life and his way of worship. And so I don't think he had any intention of establishing a church per se, because many years after his death, his disciples built a church and tried to preserve the spirit and the way of life that Marin showed to them. And this is where the Maronite community kind of formed and originated from.
When we talk about St. Marin, can we have a time frame? What would be the years of his life? So we have a sense of history. Yes,
St. Marin lived in the 4th century, and it is estimated that he died in the early 5th century, about 410 after Jesus Christ. But again, the Maronite Church was established a year later after his death, and history goes back to the 7th century when the first Maronite patriarch, St. John Marin, was elected patriarch of the Maronite Church.
Okay. Sister Marie Madeline, I know you're the superior there at the Antonine Sisters. Tell us a little bit about your work as a superior and some of the things that you do on a daily basis.
Like every mother does in her home with the children, I'm trying to do. Because sisters, they came from Lebanon, and some of them, they are too young for me. And I have really to take them as really, I don't want to use the word my children, but I treat them like they are really part of me, part of the community. And I am really responsible of their well-being, spiritually and physically and educational too. I have to be ready for them, especially when they go to universities. I have to really follow them and be attentive what they are doing, what kind of education they are getting, and bring them home. And what we have in our really tradition, we go to the Ursuline College in Cleveland, but we bring them every Friday to the community in North Jackson. We take them back Sunday. The purpose of this, to keep them close to us, to be at the community, close to each other, pray together, keep our tradition, and really get them really to not to lose what we really have as a Lebanese community. That's what I'm trying. It's hard work, but I am very grateful to God. They are all of them, God bless them, intelligent, open. They do a lot of things, really good things to the church. And they participate in St. Mary's Church for the religious education. They are involved at the daycare when they come. They are part of the house, part of the community.
Now, Sister, you were part of the founding of the group here in our diocese. Tell us a little bit about your experience of the sisters coming here in 1989 from Lebanon. What was your experience first coming here to the diocese?
I was here before, like I came to study before. And the sister came to the shrine in 1965. They were studying at the Cleveland Ursuline, and one of our priests asked them if they can help them at the shrine. They came, they were here before me. The shrine was like, we had a convent there, 1965. Then we left. That condition in Lebanon wasn't really good, and we closed the convent here for 3 years. Then the superior at that time, the general superior at that time, thought we have to go back to the United States for the education of our sisters and to follow our Maronite in the United States too, to be with them. Then, because I was here and I had citizenship, I was the only one really to be eligible to come here. And I came in '89. The convent was closed. And I came, and this, God bless his soul, Bishop Malone helped us a lot to really bring the sisters back and to help us to establish the adult daycare. And that was his idea too. It was very hard because I didn't have anything at that time, nothing. They sent me with $200 to the United States and established adult daycare. But God bless all the benefactors, and God bless his soul. He really helped us to be able to do it, and he saw it before he went to heaven.
And we're going to talk at length later on, particular about the mission and the charism of the sisters here in the United States. But let's talk, Sister, about the foundress, and tell us about the beginnings of the community.
Our foundress is Mother Isabel Coury. And she started the new order in 1932, and maybe Sister Madeline is a much better expert on the history of the Antonine sisters. But from what our older sisters tell us, she felt a special calling in her heart. At that time, again in the 1930s, the Antonine order was not a missionary order, it was a contemplative order. And it was under the authority of the Antonine monks. So the general superior for the monks was also the superior for the sisters, correct?
That's correct.
And so in 1932, Mother Isabel felt that special call from God. It's like what we call a vocation within a vocation, to go out of the walls of the convent and minister especially to the poor people and to the women who were uneducated at that time. And she spoke with the superiors, and was, after a lot of prayer and discernment, she was granted the permission to go out of the convent and establish 1 or 2 communities from which the Antonine sisters grew as we know them today. And she started her mission basically with education, again educating specifically the poor Lebanese in the poor villages and the women to help them have better lives and a better quality in their families.
Sister, what more can you add to that for the life of the foundress, Sister Isabella, to share with us about the Antonine sisters?
Well, she was a prayerful woman, really. She wanted to let her sisters be well educated to be able to carry on for the schools. She was all her life, I know her, she was like, when I got to the convent, she was like sick. I didn't really know her, but when I was a student in one of our community school, and she used to go visit the school, I remember her like this. But when I came to the community, she was sick at that time. And we were novices, and she used to sit us like around her bed to spend like 2 hours with her and pray with her. And that was really, I remember her as young novices at that time.
What a blessing it would be to have that experience.
Right.
And of the foundress. Like, there's not too many religious communities that would remember their foundress and have an opportunity to actually relate and listen and touch. And I just think of those early disciples of Jesus, how their experience of him was on a very personal level.
That's
and
right.
so what a blessing it is that you had that experience that you could share with the other sisters. In
She
the
was a
community.
holy woman. She was a holy woman. God bless her soul, I'm sure.
We're coming down to the last couple minutes of our first segment. Tell us a little bit more about the mission of the Antonine Sisters. We know what the mission is here in the United States. What are some of the other things that the sisters are involved with in Lebanon and around the world?
Basically, we do ministry in education, healthcare, and social work. The major part of our ministry is in education, again in Lebanon, as you said, and internationally. Here in the United States is one of the exceptions because we do mostly healthcare and social care. We do not have schools per se here. But in Lebanon, most of our sisters work in educational institutions. We focus a lot on Catholic education, Maronite education, which we believe is a wonderful way to promote Christian life, Christian families, and also vocations to religious life. This is how my vocation started, was in the Antonine Sisters School. And also we do healthcare. We have hospitals and clinics, especially in remote areas where healthcare is not accessible to many people. Our order tries to go there and establish decent healthcare for that population, again, with the focus on the poor and the underserved. And as far as social work, we do help the poor, the needy. We try to have programs for them to strengthen their faith, to help them establish a better quality of life. Some of our older sisters try to teach them little things that they can do to support themselves and their families as well. And then, of course, we focus on religious education, not just academic education, in which the sisters do a great job. But we do religious education in parishes, in our schools, and we believe in a sound Christian education.
We're going to talk a little bit more in a moment about the Antonine Sisters, and then also about your particular vocations and your personal vocations. So we'll be right back. Please stay with us. We'll be back in a moment.
Hi, I'm Mark Quinn. As I grew up on the south side of Chicago, the Dominican Sisters of Springfield not only taught me, but formed me in my Catholic faith. The sisters worked for very, very little. Now as they've gotten older, they have no savings to fall back on. And we benefited from their sacrifice. And I think it's time that we recognize that much of what we are today, we are because of what sisters did for us. It's our turn to help them out in their hour of need. They don't ask for a lot. They embrace the simple life. I owe them so much. That's why I make an annual donation to the Retirement Fund for Religious. Do you remember the religious men and women who shaped your life? Say thank you to them by donating to the Retirement Fund for Religious at your local parish. Join me. Share in the care.
Welcome back to our show. We're talking with the Antonine Sisters, and Sister Celine and Sister Marie Madeline. Welcome back.
Thank you.
We want to talk primarily about vocations now. Let's first define what a vocation is, and then I'd like to ask each of you individually to share your personal vocation and your personal call with us. Sister Celine, what exactly does the word vocation mean?
To me, vocation is a call. It's a question that a person would ask, what does God want me to do with my life? To me, that is vocation. Instead of me just wondering what I want to do, what I like to do, it's more about trying to find the will of God in my life, and again, asking myself, where does God want me to be?
And I think that's fundamentally what we're trying to do with our show, is ask people the question, how is God calling you? So we know in our own life as religious, as people within the church, how we have responded to that call. And so there's that sense that we need to hand that on to somebody else so they can carry on the mission that we're involved with, but also the mission of Christ in the church. Sister, tell us a little bit about your vocation and the beginnings of religious life, and how you became an Antonine sister.
I was educated with the Antonine sisters in my hometown in Lebanon. I was like in 6th grade like this. One of the sisters was really teaching me at that time. She was like, and I taught her, I said, well, I'm going to be like her. I'm going to be like Sister Gabriel, her name. And really, and after I finished like not high school, less than high school, and then I decided when I reached the age 17 years old, and I decided really to go to the convent. But before me, my sister went to the convent too. But I wasn't really inspired by my sister. The sister who taught me at that time, I was really inspired by her really vocation. And the nuns at that time, they were really very close to each other. They would work together, and there were too many of them in schools. Like they were in each classroom. You see them at mass. You see them in the parking lot with the kids all over, in the cafeteria, in schools. They were really. We rarely saw like lay people in the school at that time, and that's what really my inspiration to go. And I said, well, I want to be like her, a teacher, and that's why I decided to come to the convent, and I came.
And there's always someone that inspires us. There's always someone that kind of, what I like to say is loves us into religious life, or loves us into ministry. There's someone that we look up to, and someone that gives us an example. We do know that vocation and job and career are different. You know, how do we discern the two or the three? What's the big difference?
To me, the difference would be a vocation is who am I? Whereas a job or a career is what do I do? And I think there's a big distinction between those two statements, because I am a nun and a nurse at the same time. So the nun is the who I am part, and the nurse is what I really do. So even as religious, we do have our job, so to speak, something that we do, something that the order encourages us to do in order to serve God's people better. So definitely when I get this question, you know, is this a vocation or a job? I say, you know, it's a big difference. I dedicate my life to God through my vocation, and then I serve God through my job. If I want to call it job, it's more like a mission for us.
Let's talk a little bit more about the charism of the Antonine sisters. What exactly would be the definition of the charism for your community?
We have 3 things. We have family spirit. We live as a community, as a family. We have the hospitality. That's very big things in our life, in the community. Like to really accept people in your home, accept them in your house, like part of you as a community. We have to look after the poor. That's what these 3 really, our motto, if you say it makes the Antonine sisters are different from other religious community or other different. And that's what Mother Isabel Corey, that's what insisted. We are here to help the poor with education, with something different. In her days, we didn't have hospitals. Only she was really want education for poor people, especially up on the mountain when they don't have schools at all. These days, you know, you have to really go with what's needed too. Look what's needed in the community. Then we started to really have social services. Like we have dorm, like in Paris, we have dorm for young girls who go to universities or they are studying. In Cyprus, we have like a same thing too, like social service. We have hospitals. That became like after 70, like that they started in the community. And until now, we still see what we need to do. Where can we help our people? We really do it. Like we came to United States to help our Maronite people too, in religious education, and to be with the Maronite to keep their tradition really going on.
I'd like to ask you about the church in Lebanon. You know, we don't hear a lot about that, and prior to our taping, both of you have been back in recent years to visit, obviously, family and friends. So tell us about the climate of the church in Lebanon, sister.
The Maronite Church in Lebanon, I would say, is very much well and alive. We have a lot of young people involved in our churches, and every church has groups like youth groups and groups for children and groups for young adults and married couples who come to church on a weekly basis, and they meet and they do activities together, so which is a wonderful way to attract young people. I was actually involved in those youth groups before I entered the convent as well. There's a big focus on strengthening the Maronite spirituality in our parishes and in our schools. Again, educating our young people about what's so special about the Maronite Church as far as theology, spirituality, and the Maronite liturgy that we so love to celebrate, which is very close to the Catholic tradition, but we have a focus on the Eastern spirituality as well. So the church, thanked be to God, is doing very well in Lebanon, and I think it's growing very well.
Well, that's good to know, because when we think here in the United States of the church overseas, wherever it is, in primarily like the Middle East, you know, we become concerned about that, and so it's always wonderful to hear that the church is alive and well and growing in those countries.
Oh yeah, they are close to the church. It's not like United States. You have to drive 15 minutes, half hour to get to your church. No, in Lebanon, the church is the center of the town, and everybody comes. When they hear the bell, everybody is there. Sometimes they are there before the priest. They really, it's very common and very easy for them to go. And now more and more people, especially young people, they really go to church more than it was before.
Well, and I think that says something about, for the Maronite faith, the Maronite rite, that the church is really the center
Right.
of who they are.
That's true.
As a people, as a Lebanese
that's
people.
true.
And so the church is probably what's empowered them, what's
Right.
given them strength, hope, all of those things that are necessary in not only everyday life of everybody, but especially in times of struggle and confrontation or war, whatever surrounds
And
us.
the Maronite Church is different from the other rites, because we are the Catholic only. Like if you take the other rite, they are Orthodox and Catholic. The Maronite, when you say Maronite, that means you are Catholic.
We're getting down to the last couple minutes of our time together. We'd like to share with the folks that are with us some kind of personal testimony of what not only is your vocation, but something that they might want to think about. For example, if there's some young person that's with us listening, maybe they're discerning a life as a religious woman. What would be something you would share with them that would give them a little more hope or a little more help with discernment?
I would give them 3 little pieces of advice, which worked perfectly fine with me, and I think it might help them as well. The first thing is to pray. Pray and take some time to be with God alone and with the Word of God, because unfortunately we live in a very busy and noisy world. So, and we know that God comes in the gentle breeze, like Elijah's story. I love that picture. So I would advise them again to take some time to be alone with God and focus on their hearts, because this is where God speaks to the person. This is where God speaks to me. The second thing that I would encourage them to do is to talk to someone. Talk to a priest, talk to a nun, talk to any religious person that they know, and I am sure they would be more than willing to sit down with them and help them discern more about their call. And the third thing is to go out and try it. Find out about the convents, about the orders that want to have young people come to their convents and places, and discover their life and see. This is a wonderful thing because you get a closer look at how those nuns live, how those seminarians live. And so you can find out much better about whether God is calling you to that order, to that special ministry, or maybe to something else. In my case, that's what I was advised to do by my family, my own parents, and the sisters at the school that I attended, and it was very, very helpful.
Sister?
And I will add to sister, I will invite them to come to our place and see us, what we are doing with the elderly, how we serve them, how we love them, and pray with us. And our place is very peaceful and very prayerful place. We have the shrine next to the shrine. They can really spend a week with us. We have room for them if they like to come and really watch, let them themselves taste it, see how religious life are really these days are living, their vocation, their life.
And we certainly appreciate that arm of hospitality that you extend to the folks that are with us. And that is so important to actually be there to help and participate in the life of your community,
Right.
and also in the charism that you celebrate. We certainly appreciate your presence on our show today, and
Thank
we
you.
thank you for all the wonderful work you're doing in the diocese, and God's blessing to all of the Antonine sisters in and around the world.
Thank you.
Thank
God
you.
bless you too.
Thank you.
Thank you for being with us. Have a good day, and God be with you.
How is God Calling You is a production of CTNY, the Catholic Television Network of Youngstown. Your program host was Father James Corda.
$33 million Americans have descended into poverty. And as their futures fall, so does our nation's.
Johnsons enjoy Friday dinners out. Nothing fancy, just time together to reconnect as family. They make sure others eat as well. By giving to Catholic Charities of Youngstown, the Johnsons join other angels who care for those in need, regardless of religion or race. Show your wings with a gift to Catholic Charities, changing lives one family at a time, providing housing, emergency financial assistance, senior services, and more. Give now at ccdoy.org.